Hello everybody, this is Blueberry23, and today I have for you a video that I've been meaning to make for a long time now, but just haven't gotten around to it because I was too busy building, or being burnt out from building. So, I'm going to showcase for you not in chronological order in which I built them, but in size order just because OCD reasons. So, anyways, this is the USS Defiant. She was originally a anti-Borg prototype, a direct response to the lack of negotiations that the Borg were willing to put forth, which is what the Federation relied on, which is why they were pacifists and did not make any combat-specific ships until this one. So she's small, very compact. The bridge is actually sunk into the ship, and it's like in the middle, which my ship does portray accurately. And I don't know about her surface landing capabilities. I'm sure she was capable of it, but I actually have arms that come out here, which I will not show you because I don't feel like failing on camera today, but maybe some other day. So measuring at 170 meters long, 134 meters wide, and 30 meters tall. I only have room for about 4 decks on her, and I have not completed the deflector dish on the bottom, which I'm meaning to get to. So I'll get to that eventually, but I'm probably going to end up completely rebuilding her because I had some proportional problems with the nacelles here being too far back, and or too far forward rather. The front was a little bit stumpy and has a little bit too long of a tail, and it bothers me. So I need to rebuild a lot of these ships I'm going to be showing you. So that's just a fact of the matter. But yeah, that's the Defiant. She is not in the Steam Workshop. Some of these ships are. If you go to my my Steam profile at Blueberry23. You can find the 3 ship designs that I actually have posted, which are newer ship designs, and they have no interior completed. This one technically has a completed interior, although I don't really like how a lot of it's mapped. But I'll at least show you the battle bridge, which is right up here. I have no gravity generators, of course, so we just went in, we went up 1 deck. You can see there's a deck above, but the battle bridge is right here. And you can control all the systems from this room, and it is extremely armored all around. I pitted this against a friend of mine's Borg ships that he designs, which is too easy, and if you ask me, but it was a Borg assimilator, and he actually gave me a run for my money. And I think he actually destroyed my ship because I had placed my shield generator in a poor position. And he managed to get in with a cutting beam before that mod was made obsolete. But anyway, so that is the Defiant. Not the most pretty ship, if you ask me, but I can see what the Federation were trying to do when they made her. Now, not too long after, I don't know the canon years, the Sabre was made to be used in conjunction with the Steamrunner class. So Sabre is more of a, I believe she's an escort frigate. And she would have been working with with the Steamrunner class, which I'm probably going to be building next, as an artillery ship, essentially, a long-range torpedo vessel. So these are supposed to be, really nimble, and they packed a lot of punch for what they had for them, and also more combat designed, which is more of a trend that you see as the Dominion War and more encounters with the Borg happen. So this ship is supposed to be 364 meters long, as far as I could find. Now, for some reason, when I built her, I only made her about 205 meters. So I'm not sure where I got my dimensions for that. She looked proportionally okay. Missing a few things, but I thought that was more matter of just being too thick. But another ship that I need to rebuild. My skills have greatly improved since I did her probably about February of this year. So she's supposed to be 364 meters long, 225 meters wide, and 52 meters tall. But again, she's actually outfitted with some decks on the inside, which I didn't entirely complete. But she does have a fighter bay in here, so you can, have a couple runabouts and whatnot in here. The med room, I believe, is right in here, which is has a pretty good protection, if you ask me, from everything. So this is where you would respawn to get back up into the ship, which is right next to the main staircase, which you can get up and down to all the decks, which is also something that's outdated because since VCZ has put out a very good multi-elevator mod, so I want to update them all with what do you call them, turbo lifts, which I'm sporting in the new Intrepid design, which is right there, and the Sovereign, which is on the other side, but we'll get to those. Now, trying to use space, I sort of incorporated part of my own design in the ship. These doors are on both the top and the bottom, and they're designed for planetary bombardment. So you could essentially 3D print a missile, and here using nanites or whatever mod you want to use, and you can have this ship hovering above a landing zone. If you're using it in conjunction with say an Akira, which has much more space inside for landing craft and fighters and whatnot. You can put up a pretty good bombardment with that, using control stations in the bridge to manually control your missiles into the targets that you're looking for. So more for a, keeping the smaller ships off the fleets, taking out the fighters, while the Defiants go after, more major systems on the larger ships, trying to avoid fire. This one's a little bit too big to really do that, but the design is there to make it a little bit harder to hit, which is a trend that you'll see right up to the Sovereign class. So moving on to the Intrepid. Now, part of this design is original to my first iteration of the ship, which was because this was the first ship that I attempted to build, and I built her in survival. Now, that ship is entirely survival, the Sabre class. This one is mostly survival. I mainly redid the bridge and the forward part of the ship. Like, this is all new. I got a new blocks mod, the armor ramp compendium mod. Very, very nice mod. I love that. I use it on everything now. So I actually found real deck plans, canon deck plans of this ship, and I was attempting to copy, and I think it was turning out really nice. I can show you the first 2 decks. I don't believe I've fixed her elevator issue that she was having. Try and call it. Yeah. So it actually has pretty good looking decks here. So these are really small, so they're easy to do. So you have like a officer's mess. There's a conference room here with a forward-facing window, which I think is a really nice touch. Now, because this is blueprinted and pasted in, my ship is not actually centered over, but this is actually the ship that you are standing in projected over this, which is another addition that I really love that they added. The DLCs are like $4. It's totally worth it for just the extra accents and space fillers to make your rooms look really nice. This is the captain's ready room. I couldn't really find exactly what to put in it, so we just kind of put some stuff in. Captain talking to some officer about what to do and not to do, whatever. For the sake of this, no, we'll show in another video once I get her fully decked out. But I'm having too much fun with doing the exteriors that it's probably gonna be a little bit till I get to that. So that's the Intrepid. She's supposed to be 344 meters, so she's actually supposed to be 22 meters shorter than the Sabre, which does not feel right. I'm gonna have to look at some pictures and see, and just do a bit more research and make sure those numbers are correct. But that's what I found. Feel free to correct me in the comments, you know, save me some research time because I'm too busy building. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to double check on that because that would make the Sabre massive, and the Sabre's not supposed to be massive, so whatever. I'll figure that out later. So 344 meters long, 132 meters wide, and 64 meters tall. I actually remember the deck count for her because I worked on it for so long. She's supposed to be 15 decks. I want to say this one is 13 or 14. I'm not quite sure how it came out so close because a lot of my ships don't match that. Maybe I just proportioned it wrong. I don't know. But she does not have an accurate deflector dish, something I definitely worked on with my later designs. But it's nicely shaped with the exception of deflector dish, and I like this part a little bit better. The nacelles were cannon pretty plain. They didn't have a lot of cool looks like the Sovereign class did. But you have the shuttle bay back here, which is really the only thing that I actually completed. And then this was a blast door that actually rattled itself off when I flew her out of her construction port that I designed her in survival and flew her up. I believe my door went somewhere flying up through the bridge. Back when pistons were much more unstable than they are now, because this was about 2 years ago that I did that. And I had a friend of mine, he pasted a chair up on top and rode the thing all the way up there, and then I was working on a station to have it docked at. But I kind of got bored of that because it was only a single player and there wasn't really anything to do when you're playing by yourself. When you have such a massive ship like this, you know, it's just so expensive to fuel it that there's no point in trying to fly it around and destroy small cargo things when, you know, they're not going to be able to touch you anyways. Yeah, so that's the Intrepid. I was very proud of her originally, but it's harder to appreciate her now that I've moved so far along from her. Then this is the first ship that I was really proud of. I'm actually in the process of rebuilding her right now, but I ran into some proportional issues where I felt like the nacelles were too small based on the dimensions that I was given, and a picture that I was basing it off of now. I took pretty direct proportions from it, and I converted meters to inches to blocks and all sorts of other things, and it's supposed to fit within a certain size box, and I don't feel like it looks right. I feel like these look like they're fairly proportioned, maybe just a tiny bit too big. But when I designed them how I thought they were supposed to look, in effect to the ones that they actually measured up proportionally, according to my measurements, I actually measured them up exactly the same as my original design, which makes me think that maybe I did something wrong. I need to go back and look at it, but I haven't had time. My life's just been too busy to tackle that. But as far as large ships go, she has the most blocks of any ship that I've built. She has the most completed interior, proportion to her size of any ship I've built. Some dimensions are incorrect, like the fighter bay is supposed to be a little bit wider, but I made it taller so it could accommodate some of the ships that I had. I will not go inside and do a whole lot of touring here because I get lost myself, which is not the best. So here is it has identical hangar bays on each side with an elevator here that uses a piston to push it up and down. So you can put whatever invasion force or, you know, stack your fighters up and around here, and when you go to jump to different points, you can have everybody in there, and everybody who would be in a vehicle or in a drop ship or whatever. Now I know Federation didn't really have invasion forces like that, but for the purposes of a faction that I would run in Space Engineers, they'd probably be needed eventually. If ever you wanted to do any operations on Earth or something like that where you really can't land these ships. You can have fighter support, but you're not really going to be taken out of base with fighters. You're really going to need to infiltrate. But anyways, the torpedo launchers are back here, which is set just about 400 meters behind the nose, so that leaves any standard ranged missile to be to only have a 400 meter range in front of the nose of your ship, which probably won't even make it past your shield bubble. So that's my one big complaint. Something I've really been needing in my ship designs is accurate weapons that would properly depict the range at which they would be used, at least a little bit better than they are. Now I know that phasers are supposed to be able to shoot 1 light second away, which puts you at about 300,000 meters. Now I'm not quite looking for that. That's a little absurd, considering the distance between Earth and Mars is like 1,200 kilometers or something like that. So I'm just looking for like maybe a 3-kilometer torpedo, something like that, and something that shoots a bit faster too, because if you use the same missile speed, it's so painfully slow and inaccurate. You'd never hit anything anyways. But I think I have a mod that I'm using that's it's like directed energy weapons, I believe it is. That it looks really nice. It looks like phasers. They don't sound like phasers, but they have the really good effects. And I think they cover just about every base, with the exception of the actual block looks like a 5-inch gun, rather than like a phaser strip that I'd be looking for. But other than that, it covers all my bases. God, I get distracted easily. So all my ships here are actually designed to be able to go into Mars's atmosphere. So my plan for my faction is to actually be based out of Mars, and then maintain control of Mars and the planet. So like I said, I'm just going to avoid going inside. Just take my word for it that she has decks just about everywhere, with the exception of the rear portions of the pylons here, and the back end of the ship I believe is a little bit bare. But like her processing and like she's designed to have ore processing and be able to produce her own parts. I'm using the Nanite factory mod, which puts a factory in the front of each nacelle, I believe, and just behind the lighting here. And those would be designed to repair the ship or repair another ship nearby. I might actually make a Constellation class just as a repair ship, but we'll see. I think that's a little bit big for a repair ship. I might make something more maybe Defiant sized or Intrepid sized, because I'm not actually sure the dimensions on a Constellation. So looking more recently, this is actually the most recent ship I've completed. Now I'm not a huge Excelsior fan, but I really like how she turned out. Adding more color really, really helps with making the ships look better. I found that out with the Akira. I added just a little bit of color here and there, and some gray spots, and she looked 100 times better. So I've been really trying to find the best depictions of the ships and their color, and how they look best, and then painting the ships based off of that. And then that combined with my further use of the Armor Ramp Compendium mod that a friend of mine actually found, I've been making the ships look much more accurate. And you can see the Akira was the last one I made that did not use that, as her saucer is very step looking, and that bothers me a lot. And that's why I redid the Intrepid quite a bit. So like I said, no interior essentially. You can get to the bridge, but the inside has no completed deck work whatsoever, with the exception of just functionality. So she can jump, she can maneuver, you can mount weapons to her and she'll work, but a phaser's going straight through once top of the hole to the bottom of the hole and you're not hitting anything. So yeah, I believe the Excelsior is supposed to be the longest serving ship that the Federation ever produced, because they just kept on upgrading it, so of course it's gonna last. But apparently officers liked it and they continue to use it. I wish they didn't, just because I don't think she looks very nice, but if she was effective, then who can blame you? And then my pride and joy, let me I'm gonna bring the sun around here just for better effect. There we go. So I only spent about 2 days on the Excelsior, start to finish. I spent just like half an hour on the third day because I forgot to put a deflector dish on her, of all things. I don't think it looks good anyways, but that's whatever. That's more self-critical of that. I spent about 6 days on this ship, I think, from sketch to completed paint job. I've always been wanting to make her ever since even before I made the Intrepid, because I've loved this ship so much, and I have so much associated with my childhood because of playing, Star Trek Armada games and all that kind of stuff. So I've always loved the design, but her dimensions always just kind of felt out of reach. And then I attempted to build a ship much larger than her, and all of a sudden it felt more possible. And I tackled it in a much shorter time than I anticipated. To a much higher detail than I thought I'd be able to. So here you have all sorts of contours on the hull. So these are windows. This has much more windows than you'd think on more of a combat-oriented ship, at least more tactically. But they're not entirely accurate where they are just because of block limitations, and there should be more and whatnot. But I deal with what I have. So you'll be able to get into everything. You'll be able to get around through all the corridors and whatnot. I can actually show you a little bit of the inside of this one, because I started working on the decks and I realized that probably wasn't a good idea if I wanted to build anything else, because with the Akira I really burnt myself out for months afterwards. So we'll fly back here and show you. This is where the hangar bay is going to be. At least one of the hangar bays. I believe she's supposed to have 2. This is supposed to be the main hangar bay, and then there's another one on the back, kind of like where the Constitution had hers. But I'm still struggling with the design on how to make that look nice. So let's take a peek in here. No coloration yet, or not coloration, lighting yet. But I know where I want the windows, so I'm probably gonna make this a conference room or something of the sort. Try and make use of these window ports. You have the bridge, which is not by any means completed, but more or less mapped out how I think I'm going to want her to look like. And then you can get up to the upper level right here, where you have a single window. I'm probably going to put her antenna up here and some other communications, maybe a beacon and something else. I haven't entirely decided yet. Let's just walk down this wall and right on our face. Okay. So yeah, this is about peak build design right here. I had to rebuild this part a second time because I accidentally proportioned the nacelles incorrectly to the saucer. I had this portion right here in line with the saucer when I realized that I had lined it up with that part right there, so I had to move it down about 5 blocks, which meant that I had to get the angles different and all sorts of other problems. But I don't have every block I need. I'm still struggling with parts like this where there's just, it's so darn specific that you're really not going to find anybody who's going to make blocks like that. Or like right here, they've honestly neglected the 1x2 slopes by quite a bit. I can come up with at least 3 or 4 different blocks that they need to add that should be added just for normal use. That always seems to trip me up in a lot of places. But other than that, I think she turned out really nice. You can get up and down the nacelles. She does have a turbo lift in there. I don't believe the Excelsior does yet. I will be designing the Excelsior with a disconnecting saucer, but that's a lot of trouble to do that, so I'm probably going to do that later. But I did have a Constitution that I lost in a when I upgraded my computer, so I lost almost all my blueprints. But I kept my ships in another world, thankfully. Thank God I had these ships in a world that were docked up to a station, or else I would have lost months and months, hours upon hours of building and designing. So I did lose the Constitution, but I did have a working saucer separation mechanism on the Constitution, so I'm probably going to add that. You just need you can easily just connect two stairs or slopes without blocks under them, and you can get between the decks, which they would do that, and it works perfectly. And the Excelsior and the Constitution designs allow for that a lot easier. Now, according to canon, the Sovereign's supposed to be able to saucer separate, but saucer separation was designed to protect the family members that were staying on board the ship because they were going on 3 to 5 year missions. So, with the, I want to say, the destruction of one of the Enterprise, or not the Enterprise, Galaxy class ships by the Dominion that killed like 1,000 people or something like that, when all the family and crew on board, just before the Dominion War, really started that shift from having families on board to separating the Starfleet personnel and their families so they were not in danger, which seemed to be happening more and more as the Dominion and Borg became more prominent. So at the time that the Sovereign was built, that line of thinking that you're going to have your families on board was really outdated. So separating your saucer from your where's Facebook? Really? Sorry about that, guys. So according to the doctrine that they had then, separating your hull from your saucer, your engineering hull from your saucer really wasn't going to do you any good. But that's, y'all can debate that. I've heard arguments on both sides, and people just, it's like, oh well, that's what canon is. Like, alright, well, it doesn't make sense even if it is canon, but who am I to say whether it is canon or not? I just think it doesn't make sense. So anyways, that is the ships that I have. I have plans for Steam Runner class. I want to build the Galaxy eventually. That's a very well-loved ship because Next Generation is probably one of the most well-liked series. And I might make an NX class, just because that'd be small. It looks like it'd be a pain in the butt to do. It kind of resembles the Akira. And according to canon, I'm forced to say that the Akira was inspired by the NX class, but I see it, but I don't. But anyways, like and share, tell your friends, if you got people who are interested in this kind of thing. I do plan on making a server at some point. I'm building these ships, because I like the look of them, but I also want to use them. So, if you're interested, shoot me a message on Steam or in the comments or whatever, and I can get you guys in the world and you can see the ships. The Excelsior, the Intrepid refit that I'm working on, and the Sovereign are all in the workshop if you want to do that as well. I made an Instagram for my ships as well, so you can track my building. You can see what builds I'm working on. You can see all the drawings and the steps that it takes to make a ship like this. So if you're interested in that, follow me on Instagram. I try and post at least once or twice a week. It's around the holidays right now, so I really don't have much time to do any sort of building. Although I've been trying, like I said. So. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you on the next video.